When you sent over this research on cancer, I was immediately hooked.
Yeah.
It's not every day we get to explore a whole new way of understanding and tackling this disease.
Yeah.
This deep dive takes us into a video that breaks down two scientific papers. And get this, it proposes 10 interventions to combat cancer. 10.
Wow.
I know, right?
And what's so interesting is that these papers suggest cancer might have a universal cause, which is a bold claim, right? But if it's true, then it opens up the really exciting possibility of universal treatment strategy.
Universal treatment strategies. That's
Yeah.
a huge if. But let's run with it for a minute. What would that even look like?
Well, the video outlines three main goals, almost like a mission control for defeating cancer. First, you'd want to starve cancer cells by cutting off their primary fuel sources, glucose and glutamate.
Okay, that makes sense. No fuel, no growth.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing it's not as simple as just cutting off the junk food supply.
Right? Right. It's also about restoring the function of those tiny energy factories inside our cells, the mitochondria. Think of them as the power grid for our cells. If we can reactivate them, we can potentially trigger cancer cell death and restore normal cell function.
So we're cutting off the enemy supply lines and
Yeah.
boosting our own power grid? I like the strategy so far. But I have a feeling there's one more piece to this puzzle.
You're right. The third mission is to target the root of the problem, cancer stem cells. These cells are particularly troublesome because they can self-renew and differentiate into various types of cancer cells, driving recurrence and the spread of the disease. If we can eliminate these, then we're talking about a real possibility of complete eradication.
Starve, restore, and eradicate.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how these three goals could lead to that universal treatment strategy, but I'm dying to know, what are these 10 interventions?
Well, they range from natural substances like vitamins to approved drugs being repurposed for cancer treatment and even lifestyle changes.
Okay, we've got to unpack all of that. Let's start with the natural intervention, specifically this idea of orthomolecular medicine. It's a term I've heard before, but to be honest, I don't fully grasp it.
Essentially, orthomolecular medicine focuses on balancing the levels of micronutrients in your body for optimal health. It's based on the idea that diseases, including cancer, can arise from imbalances in these micronutrients.
So are we talking about megadosing on vitamins here? Isn't that a bit controversial?
There's definitely some controversy surrounding it, and part of the reason is there's limited research in this area, mainly because natural substances don't offer the same profit potential as pharmaceuticals.
Ah. So Big Pharma isn't exactly throwing money at vitamin research? That makes sense.
Yeah.
But the video focuses on three specific micronutrients with purported anti-cancer properties: vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. Let's start with vitamin C. I know it's good for colds, but what's the connection to cancer?
There's actually over 50 years of research on vitamin C and cancer. What's fascinating is that it seems to play a role in all three of our mission goals: starving cancer cells, restoring mitochondrial function, and even targeting cancer stem cells.
Wait, hold on, all three. That's a pretty bold claim. How does it manage to do all of that?
Well, for starters, vitamin C seems to be able to restore the function of those mitochondria we talked about, potentially leading to the death of cancer cells. It also appears to inhibit the proliferation of cancer cells, even those pesky drug-resistant cells and cancer stem cells. And to top it off, research suggests it might even halt metastasis, which is the spread of cancer to other parts of the body.
So it's like vitamin C is a multi-pronged weapon,
Yeah.
attacking cancer cells from different angles, but there's even more to it, right? You mentioned something about its impact on the immune system.
You're right. Vitamin C has a unique ability to polarize macrophages, which are immune cells from a type that supports cancer growth called M2, to a type that fights it, called M1. Essentially, it's giving the immune system a boost in its battle against cancer.
Okay, so not only is vitamin C potentially fighting cancer cells directly, but it's also rallying the troops, so to speak. And if I remember correctly, there's one more trick up its sleeve.
You're thinking about how it affects glucose, right?
Mhm.
Well, vitamin C actually competes with glucose for entry into cells. This means it could further deprive cancer cells of their primary fuel source.
So it's a triple threat, disrupting the energy supply, attacking cancer cells directly, and boosting the immune response. But I have to ask, we're talking about high doses of vitamin C here, right? Is that safe?
That's a question that comes up a lot. While more research is always needed, studies have shown that high doses of vitamin C can be effective at killing cancer cells while leaving healthy cells unharmed.
That's reassuring. Okay, so we've got vitamin C covered. Let's move on to vitamin D. Now, I know this is crucial for bone health, but what's its role in the fight against cancer?
Interestingly, vitamin D has demonstrated anti-cancer properties across a wide range of cancer types. And like vitamin C, it seems to hit all three of those mission goals we outlined earlier.
So another multitasker. Can you
Okay.
elaborate on how it achieves those goals?
It appears to restore mitochondrial function, inhibit cancer growth, and target those cancer stem cells, and limit the fuel sources available to cancer cells.
That's impressive. But isn't vitamin D deficiency pretty common, especially in cancer patients?
It is, which suggests that high-dose supplementation could potentially be beneficial. And even for the average person, maintaining healthy vitamin D levels through regular intake might lower their cancer risk.
So something as simple as taking a vitamin D supplement could have significant protective effects. That's pretty empowering information for our listeners.
Ah,
Okay, we've talked about vitamin C and vitamin D. What about zinc? Where does it fit into this picture?
zinc is essential for a healthy immune system, and there's a strong link between zinc deficiency and cancer. Studies have shown that lower zinc levels are associated with lower survival rates in cancer patients.
It's concerning. But how does zinc specifically target cancer cells?
Zinc appears to primarily work by restoring mitochondrial function, which, as we've discussed, is crucial for disrupting cancer cell energy production.
All right, so we've covered the natural heavy hitters, vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. Now let's shift gears and delve into those approved drugs that are being repurposed for the fight against cancer. I'm particularly interested in this concept of off-label drug use. What exactly does that entail?
Off-label drug use is when a drug that's approved for one medical condition is used to treat a different condition. It's a common practice, and doctors can prescribe drugs off-label if they believe it's in their patient's best interest.
So in this case, we're talking about drugs that are already approved for something else. But researchers are finding they might have anti-cancer properties as well. What's the first drug on our list?
Ivermectin. Now, I know this drug has been in the news lately for other reasons, but its potential in cancer treatment is based on its ability to trigger a process called autophagy.
Autophagy.
Yeah.
That sounds familiar. Isn't that like a cellular recycling process?
Exactly. It's like the cell is taking out its trash and cleaning house.
Oh.
During autophagy, the cell breaks down unnecessary components and uses them for fuel.
So it's like a cellular spring cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
But how does this process triggered by ivermectin actually help fight cancer? Does it tie back into those three mission goals?
It does. Ivermectin appears to target the mitochondria, blocks the breakdown of glucose and glutamate to starve cancer cells, and also targets those cancer stem cells. Plus, it has a good safety profile in cancer treatment, which is always important.
That's encouraging to hear. What other drugs are being investigated for their potential in this off-label cancer treatment approach?
Benzimidazole, specifically two drugs called mebendazole and fenbendazole. Mebendazole is already approved for treating parasitic infections, while fenbendazole is close to approval.
And what's their claim to fame in the cancer world?
Both drugs seem to primarily target cancer stem cells and limit fuel sources for cancer cells, similar to ivermectin, but they also have another interesting effect.
I'm all ears.
They appear to inhibit angiogenesis, which is the formation of new blood vessels. This is crucial because cancer cells need a constant blood supply to grow and spread. By inhibiting angiogenesis, these drugs could essentially cut off the tumor's lifeline.
So it's like cutting off the enemy's supply lines.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. What's the last drug on our list?
It's called DAWN, which stands for 6-diazo-5-oxo-L-norlysine. It shares some similarities with benzimidazoles in that it targets cancer stem cells and reduces the availability of fermentable fuel sources for cancer cells. And in low doses, it appears to be safe and non-toxic.
So we've got a whole arsenal of repurposed drugs with promising anti-cancer properties. But I'm guessing it's not just about pills and supplements, right? Lifestyle changes probably play a role too.
Absolutely. A video highlights 4 key lifestyle interventions: fasting, the ketogenic diet, physical activity, and hyperbaric oxygen therapy. These interventions offer a way to potentially influence the internal environment of our bodies, making them less hospitable to cancer cells.
Okay, let's dive into these lifestyle changes, starting with fasting. I know it's become quite trendy lately, but I'm curious about the science behind its potential in cancer treatment. How does it actually work?
Well, we know that fasting triggers that cellular cleaning process we discussed earlier, autophagy. This leads to many of the same benefits as ivermectin, reactivating mitochondria, targeting cancer stem cells, and even priming healthy stem cells for optimal function. But here's the kicker. Fasting seems to enhance the effectiveness of the other interventions we've talked about.
So it's like fasting's a force multiplier.
Yeah.
It's beneficial on its own, but in combination with other interventions, it could be incredibly powerful. What about the ketogenic diet? It seems to be gaining traction as a potential cancer treatment.
Yeah.
How does it work?
The ketogenic diet forces the body to switch from using glucose as its primary fuel source to using fat instead.
So it's basically flipping the metabolic switch, right?
Exactly. And guess what? It also appears to achieve all 3 of our mission goals. It reactivates the mitochondria, targets those cancer stem cells, and reduces the amount of glucose and glutamate available for cancer cells to use as fuel.
Okay, so the ketogenic diet is essentially starving cancer cells while giving our healthy cells a new energy source.
Sorry.
Now, what about physical activity? We all know exercise is good for us, but how does it specifically help fight cancer?
Physical activity seems to train our cells to produce more mitochondria, which increases their energy production. It also inhibits glycolysis, which is the process by which cancer cells break down glucose for energy. So exercise is essentially making our cells more efficient and resilient.
So it's like giving our cells a workout so they can fight back more effectively.
I like it.
And finally, what about hyperbaric oxygen therapy? That one sounds a bit more intense than the others.
It is a bit more involved, but it addresses a key characteristic of cancer cells: their preference for low oxygen environments. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy floods the body with oxygen, which can be detrimental to cancer cells. It restores mitochondrial function and may even trigger cancer cell death by introducing reactive oxygen species. Plus, it appears to enhance the effectiveness of drug treatments.
Wow, so it's like turning the tables on cancer's preferred environment.
Yeah.
Seems like we're seeing a pattern here. All these interventions, whether they're natural substances, repurposed drugs, or lifestyle changes, appear to work synergistically targeting cancer from multiple angles.
You've hit the nail on the head. And that's what makes this research so intriguing. It's not just about finding one magic bullet, but about understanding how all of these pieces fit together to create a more comprehensive approach to cancer prevention and treatment.
This is truly mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah.
And I have to say I'm incredibly grateful to you, our listener, for sharing this research with us. It's deep dives like this that really ignite my curiosity and passion for exploring these complex topics.
Absolutely. And speaking of passion, we'd love to keep this conversation going. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, hit that like button, and share this video with your friends. Your support means the world to us and helps us reach a wider audience who are just as eager to learn and explore as you are.
Well said. Now let's take a moment to process all of this information and then dive even deeper into the implications of this research in the next part of our deep dive. All right, we're back and ready to wrap up this incredible deep dive into the world of cancer research.
You know, as we've been discussing these 10 interventions, what strikes me is how they challenge the traditional view of cancer as this monolithic enemy.
It's like we're shifting from a war metaphor to something more nuanced.
Right, exactly. Instead of just trying to obliterate cancer cells, we're starting to understand the complex interplay of factors that contribute to its development and spread. It's about creating a whole body environment that's less conducive to cancer's survival.
It's like we're gardening our internal ecosystem, making it less hospitable to those pesky weeds.
I love that analogy. And what's exciting is that these interventions empower us to take an active role in that gardening process.
We're not just helpless bystanders. We can make choices about our diet, lifestyle, and even medical treatments that can potentially influence the course of the disease.
And that sense of agency can be profoundly empowering. It can help us feel less like victims and more like active participants in our own healing journey.
Speaking of healing journeys, I'm curious about the future directions of this research. What are some of the most promising avenues for exploration?
Well, one area that's particularly exciting is personalized medicine. As we learn more about the genetic and molecular underpinnings of cancer, we can start to tailor treatments to individual patients.
So it's like moving away from the one-size-fits-all approach to something more targeted and precise.
Exactly. Imagine a future where we can analyze a patient's tumor, identify its specific vulnerabilities, and then create a personalized cocktail of interventions to target those weaknesses.
That sounds like science fiction. But it's incredible to think that we're moving in that direction.
It is remarkable. And it's not just about developing new drugs and treatments. It's also about understanding how these interventions interact with each other and with the body's own natural defenses.
So it's about looking at the whole picture, the entire ecosystem, rather than just focusing on isolated parts.
Precisely. And I think that's where the real breakthrough will come, when we can integrate all of these pieces into a truly holistic and personalized approach to cancer care.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation, and I have to say I'm feeling a renewed sense of hope about the future of cancer treatment.
Me too. While there's still much to learn and many challenges ahead, this research offers a glimpse into a future where cancer may no longer be the terrifying and often insurmountable disease it is today.
And that's a future worth fighting for.
Absolutely.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive, but I hope this is just the beginning of the conversation. We encourage all of you listening to continue exploring these topics, asking questions, and seeking out information that empowers you to take control of your health.
And remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about cancer, the better equipped we are to make informed decisions about prevention treatment and our overall well-being.
Now, before we sign off, I want to express our sincere gratitude to you, our amazing listeners. Your support makes these deep dives possible, and your engagement fuels our passion for exploring these complex and fascinating topics.
So please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it with your friends. Together, we can create a community of informed and empowered individuals who are committed to learning, growing, and making a difference in the fight against cancer.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.